Hello, Edward Dumancas, and Wing Chun and a cup of tea. This is my third installment or episode. And as I mentioned in the last one, that we will have a guest today, and hopefully he will be joining us soon. But until then, I hope everyone is doing okay with this coronavirus time of our life. Hopefully you're enjoying your time off and your family's okay. Hello, Ralph. Oh, he's not on just yet, but I see his face.
Hey,
hello.
How
So Ralph, I'm already going through the meeting.
Awesome.
Yes, and so I was just waiting for you to sign on. And my thoughts, Ralph, is to maybe, since you've trained for many years and you actually have your own business, maybe if you'd like to give a little bit of history of your martial arts background first of all, and then if there's any relevance to your to the training that you've acquired and that discipline that comes with it, and how, if anything, has helped you while you started and built your business. So I'll leave it to you. You can go ahead and just jump in.
Sure. All right. Well, my training started, I guess, kind of late. I didn't start training until I was 17. My parents were kind of very against me training martial arts because they thought I would get violent, which is actually the opposite of what happened. So I was back in Marysville. The first martial arts school that I trained into, I stayed with for 13 years. It was a Northern Long Fit style. It's a Kung Fu Northwest. And immediately I just loved it. I loved it. I love training. I've always enjoyed Kung Fu, like watching it. So something that I've always had interest in. So as soon as I joined into the school, it was literally me being there as much as I could, because it was just, I was trying to catch up or make up for all the time that I wanted to learn martial arts, but wasn't really allowed to. So I was there sometimes 3 to 5 hours a day. Just, if I could train on the floor, I would. It was one of those things. And eventually Sifu Carlton over there started kind of having me help him during class. And it was a very slow process of me just volunteering to be there. And then he had me help out during class. And then eventually he started letting me kind of lead classes. And it eventually ended up being me having the privilege of being the instructor over there. So it was really fun. I got to work with a lot of younger kids to teenage and adults, even older than me, which is always kind of weird to have to train or tell people what to do when they're older than me. My culture is not like that, so it was very different. It's kind of weird. But transitioning into business, there's a lot of things that I was able to take away from the martial arts and translate that into business. Like you said, Pochi is bubble tea over here in Linwood. My business partners and I bought it in 2015, and there was a lot of potential in it for growth. And that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about martial arts and training is, aside from just the passion and the love for the art and for the ability to kind of self-express yourself, I could see a lot of growth in the people that I work with and also in myself. So I can't really say I love martial arts, I love business, but I can't say I have a passion in either one. I think I went to the things that I love doing and brought my passion, which is the passion to see growth and to experience the growth. And that's why I think I've always had the mentality of always being a student, no matter how much training I've ever done. I've never really seen myself as somebody that's always anywhere near the top, just because it's, there's always something to learn, always something to improve on. So when we started business, it was one of those things where it was like, hey, you know what? I saw all the things that could be improved on when we slowly started implementing those things, anywhere from marketing, customer relationship, product development, and all that stuff. And that's we are where we are today. And even giving back to the community. I know right now we're kind of in the middle of this coronavirus thing. I know we're making free lunches for people. We've given out free drinks to the hospitals. Any law enforcement, if they come in and just stop by and get a drink, it's free. A lot of that, I think, also stems from being having trained with individuals and just kind of learning that role as an instructor. You learn to just give, and you don't expect anything in return. You give what you have, and you hope for that person. You hope the best for them.
Wow. Interesting history. I mean, and how you relate it to both. It seems to me that many martial arts schools, you learn this. I'm not sure if I want to use the word discipline, but then you learn to work with others. You learn to realize that as yourself, as you're growing, that there's a lot to learn, a lot of things that you may not be able to do. So that gives you a little bit more humility when you start seeing other people. And then many schools, even until today, still believe in certain, guided principles for their practitioners. Give back to your community. Don't get into fights. I mean, just real basic stuff. And it's actually very meaningful when you start looking back going, yeah, these are actually attributes. You think when you're young or when you start training, maybe the whole mindset is, I want to learn how to punch. I want to learn how to kick, right? And then you come to find out that after you can do all that, if you can get past all these little hurdles, and you get one hurdle or many hurdles, and then they become a little less, but then you get a new hurdle, but then you start to learn, maybe that's not really what I want to do. I enjoy throwing a kick. I enjoy throwing a punch, blocking, but I don't think this is ultimately what we really strive to do, to go out and hurt someone. Instead, you learn to want to give back. And I commend you for, giving back to the community. I mean, this is a really crucial time for us, for everyone, and the law enforcement or the healthcare providers that you're offering things to, or even for those that are in need. Thank you. I want to say that for sure. And good for your business. So I found something interesting. You and I, so when in 73 is when I first started learning karate. Prior to that, so I had uncles and aunts that lived with us temporarily. I don't really remember how long they lived with us. They moved from like North or South Carolina and moved to Hawaii. And so they were all in like Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts and Girl Scouts. And my mother, me being the first child in the family, was afraid of letting me go out and do anything. She was afraid of me getting hurt. It's really, really odd. And we lived in a very new subdivision. And so from where we lived, I mean, you could literally walk up the hill 2 houses away and catch the bus to school. And that same bus stop, the bus takes you there, drops you off, and you walk two doors down to your home, to our house. And so my world consisted of, in the morning, from the doorway of our house to the bus stop, then you spend time at school, then you come home, and you leave the bus and you go back home. That was my world, right? I didn't really see anything else as a 6-7-year-old. But if I remember right, because it was a new subdivision, there were still lots of homes needed to be built. And but across the street of our house, there were 2 more homes that was just built, and of course they were building more homes. But across the street, there was a girl that lived there, who a year younger than me, and then was age, and that was the extent as far as I could go was, so I played with both of those girls for at least for the first 2 years, third and fifth grade. There were more homes there, and I gradually, my parents started to be a little bit more flexible with me and allowed me to walk further away from our house. But when my uncle came back from Vietnam, that's when my martial arts training started. And so, just a long story, really short, I do remember this. I remember him having a meeting with my parents and telling them that martial arts was necessary in my life, because all I had after school was these two girls that I played with. And so, I mean, you know, at 7 years old, I didn't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, and until today, I haven't, it's not like I can contact them, you know, I mean, they still live in Hawaii and I'm up here, but I didn't see anything wrong at that age. But my mother's like, I can't let him do this. You know, he's going to get hurt. And he's like, I'm one of the assistant instructors of the school. He will not get hurt. And so for the next 2 years of my training, I hated it. I mean, I hated it because my uncle was there. And it was like a huge school. I don't remember how many students, but we were in the cafeteria of our elementary school. And that elementary school served that community. It was a big school. And so I don't remember how many students. I was too young, but I do remember this. I remember watching my uncle walk back and forth, and it seemed like he forgot, in my own personal view, like he forgot about all the other students, and all he was focusing on was me, you know? So when I'm in the horse and throwing these punches and doing the blocks, and he's like, not good enough, you know? I mean, that's what I remember. But after those 2 years, it was about 2 years, and I started to grow and moved from the they separated the school from like the beginning school to like a mid-level, and then to the more advanced. I was not with him anymore. I was training with the other instructors, which was really good. But anyway, back off of me now. I want to get back to you. So, I mean, you have you employ. I mean, there's a lot of young people that work for you.
That's about 20 to 25 at a time. During summer, we have about 30. And they're all pretty young. We can hire as young as 15. I try not to, depending on how they do with their interview. If they do really well, we'll bring them on. But typically, we like to hire at least 17. And the average age for my team is about, I'd say, 20, in their 20s.
Wow. And so this new generation of people, the young generation, do you know of any of your employees that study any form of martial arts?
Well, one of them, I know he used to, because he and I used to train together. So he kind of followed me into this business. So he still loves to train martial arts, and he would. In fact, he was asking me if it's okay for him to train with you someday, one of these days. We probably want to wait until this whole thing is over, like the whole the situation.
Yeah.
Sifu. But aside from that, I don't think any of them are into any martial arts. Most of them are either into sports or TikTok. But that's their generation. So
Yeah, I really don't know what that means, TikTok. So I mean, so do you see a unique? So like you have those that are in sports, and in sports, I think you have to have this discipline in order to continue sports. I mean, because I'm sure when you're conditioning, whether it's running or football or baseball, that is probably not the best time of your practice, is going to learning the moves and running forever. And but do you see any characteristics that come to surface because of either like the guy that followed you as a martial artist, or these young people that work with you also are into sports? Are there any attributes that begin to show that the others that do not have, that are not in sports, somehow don't have these attributes? Is there anything that you notice?
Absolutely. Like a lot of the people that are active and that are in sports, when they work, they work. Like they're not shy of hard work, which and you can tell when we have people here that are active in sports or any type of physical activity, they I mean, what we do isn't really that physically draining or anything like that, but it takes some hand-eye coordination because of recipes and some memory involvement and everything. So you can definitely tell the people that have played in sports or have had physical exercise or experience in that way, even martial arts, their coordination and their ability to kind of memorize movements and recipes or anything, it they typically learn a lot faster than somebody who hasn't had any physical activity or experience. It's really cool because the guy that came with me, we came from a school that has, we're used to saying yes sir, yes ma'am. It's part of the culture that we came from. So when one of the things that kind of got brought into the culture here at Pochi is this, I was his instructor, I was his senior, so he's always said yes sir to me. Like, no, it's second nature. So he kept saying it over and over again, and now everybody in the team says yes sir or yes ma'am to each other.
Wow.
By complete accident, it's nothing that we ever intended to happen, but I think it's just been said so much. Even I say yes sir, yes ma'am to a lot of my team. It's one of those things. I think just because you're the boss doesn't mean you don't show respect to the people you work with, because as a business owner, as a boss, you actually work for your employees. You do the work for your employees. So I still say yes sir, yes ma'am to my employees, the people who, even the new people. And I think it's just a kind of a culture, really neat culture that kind of carried over into work from martial arts, that level of respect. And I don't know if they're aware of it, which is kind of really cool, because it's really interesting to see just the level of respect that they have for each other by complete accident, I think. So
Wow. Interesting.
yeah.
It's funny you bring that up. So when I moved back home from California back to Hawaii, I was, of course, I spent 7 years in the service. And even though I was out of the service for 2 years, I still had that yes sir, yes ma'am in my verbiage. It was just natural. It was normal. And I remember having my first interview. It was with Bank of America. I eventually worked with them for 5 or 6 years, as long as they were there. Anyway, after I was hired, my peer, he said to me, "Do you know what stood out, and in your interview?" And I said, "No. What, what made that decision that you should hire me?" And he was there in the interview with our manager. And he said, "You kept saying, yes, ma'am, yes, sir." And that was unusual to us. And it's like, I'm going to say I learned that in the military, right? But it was this form of respect, right? I mean, you just learn that it's okay to have respect for somebody. You don't, and not have to demand respect from someone. And especially times like today, I think we are kind of troubled that way as a whole. We don't think too much about, it's probably more important that you respect me than I respect you, when actually, you know what, if I just treat you with some respect, maybe I might get some in return, or it could be contagious, like at your job, unknowingly, right? It just begins to grow on everyone, and people treat each other differently. So, wow. So, and now the day is a little different, right? Because none of us are training,
Right.
and at least not partner interaction. And so now you're training with me. And so, from a northern style to a southern style, if you will, it kind of resembles a lot of my short history as well. The northern Prementis, followed by Wing Chun. other than, is there anything else that comes to mind about martial arts in general? I mean, you've been doing it for a long time. So is there anything that you think of? I mean, now that, not just as a practitioner, but even as an instructor for that school that you're at, is there anything that comes to mind that you think could be helpful, or maybe things have changed? I mean, 13 years is a long time, and to try and maintain a certain type of curriculum within a school, many schools change a little bit, whether it's through evolution, get better, or maybe get worse. But are there any things that you can think of that you'd like to share?
Well, I think everything will always change, and the only thing that will always be consistent is that everything's going to change, right?
Mm.
Nothing is ever really going to be the same. In those 13 years, when I first started, the curriculum was very different. And even before me, the curriculum was very different. And during my 13 years there, the curriculum has always changed and always evolved and always kind of adapted to the students and to the type of students that were brought in. But I mean, one of the things that I've learned is always kind of pivot, always change, and just kind of always learn. Even my training, I never actually, this is kind of interesting, I never went through the ranking system in 13 years. I was there, I was just there to train, I was just there to learn. That's part of why I think I've always had a student mentality, is because I never went through the ranking system. And Sifu Carlton over there even asked me, he's like, hey, do you want to go through the ranking system? And I was like, I'm just here to learn. I'm just here to kind of improve. And I would rather just be a white belt or not, it wasn't even white belt at that point, but, be a beginner for the whole time that I'm here, because that helps me keep the mentality of there's always something to learn. There's always something to improve. And I think that's one of the things that's helped with business is I never look at it as we're the best. Just like I've always kind of learned, like if there's any martial arts style that says they're the best, you kind of have to take it with a large grain of salt, because it's like everything, there's always something to be improved upon. I think Northern style has its gold nuggets. Southern styles has gold nuggets, even karate or taekwondo. They all have they all have their shining points. But there's always room for improvement in any level. And one of the things too that I learned is that there's always somebody better than you, and there's something that you can learn from everybody. As an instructor, one of the biggest lessons I've ever learned was through teaching even children, because when I would teach a simple like a horse dance from the Northern Long Fist, which is a lot wider and lower, there were some things that I would tell 5-6-year-olds, and in my head I'm like, oh man, do I do that too? I kind of start self-reflecting and become more self-aware of my personal training. I think the most I ever learned was teaching, because I started critiquing myself as I taught, which kind of opened my eyes a lot on like, man, there's a lot of things that I can improve on. There's even these things that I teach, I can still keep improving on this. One of the things that really struck a chord with me when I was teaching a teenager was I like the basics. I enjoy the basics because every time you practice, there's something new to learn. One of the teenagers that I was working with him on some basics, and he said, why am I learning this again? I already learned everything I need to know about this. And that, that shocked me. It's like, wow, like, how could you think that you learned everything already just from this? If you don't learn something new every time you practice something old, then you're not really practicing. That's kind of like my approach on it. So even the simple moves, and I think that's what I enjoy about training with you, Sifu, is Wing Chun, it may seem very simple in execution, but there is a load of stuff in there that's like, it's just, wow, this is new. This every single time I go through the basics in class is like there's something new to learn every single time. There's something always to get better. There's something to always correct, something to improve on. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from martial arts, and even carried into business, is there's always something to improve, always something to get better at.
Yeah, I agree. I think I can't speak of like as a business owner, but as a martial artist, you know, you need to go through these moves time and time again. And the structure that I spoke about, and even through, and to understand the fact that that structured movement that you learn has, it's like these tolerances, like there's so much of a plus and so much of a negative, that you can, this range of where this movement can be applied, because everyone's a little different, shape, size, strength, right? And so a move that you would learn in class may not necessarily look like in practice when you're working with someone. And the only way to get good at that is having a variety of different people, right? And then revisiting, as you just mentioned, revisiting those basics. I remember years ago, oh, by the way, I actually ran out of my tea. So, but listening to you, and I mean, it's like you have so much good information, you know, to share. But I remember a long time ago, there was a guy that asked me to train him to do personal training, and he was willing to pay me well. At least I thought, wow, that's a lot of money, you know. And I said, no, I don't want to teach you like that. And he's like, why? And a few things come to mind. One is, if I am like doing private lessons, I feel like I've lost control as the instructor. Like all of a sudden now, because you envision, or the person who's paying envisions this, I pay you, you train me at my time, right? And so that's a big piece. But more importantly, I tried to explain to this person, and he was not the only one. I've been actually confronted a couple of times, but he offered the most amount of money. And I said to him, but more importantly, you will never find your best with me, because all you see is this like goal. You want to be, because he would always compliment me, oh, you know, you're really, really good. And I'm like, I'm no good. And even if I am good, and you can be as good or better than me, if we're going to use me as that goalpost, you'll never actually get to your personal best. Because you're going to think the moment you get to wherever you think I'm at, you're finished. And so you never have that opportunity to find out what are your capabilities. And the only way to find out these capabilities is to experience it through more practice with more people, right? And then you begin to find that even that goalpost that you looked at me, that you can go beyond. And that's what I'd like to see as an instructor. So Ralph, we will have to do this again. Seriously. I mean, if you're okay with that, because I think you have a lot more to share.
Absolutely, as long as you'll have me, Sifu.
But my tea is finished, and that tells me, it looks like we've been going with, like, I mean, it's been averaging about 15 to 17 or 18 minutes a cup. So I'm not watching the clock. I don't know how much time we've been here, but we might be pushing 20 minutes. So, anyway, maybe we can schedule another day.
Absolutely, Sifu.
Yeah. And but by the way, the name of your business again?
Pochi Bubble Tea Cafe.
Yeah, Pochi. I just thought, you know, let everyone know if they didn't get it. It's really good. I like going there. Although I kind of feel old when I step into your little restaurant, because everyone's so young. I'm like, man, I can be their father, grandfather. I don't know.
Well, they're pretty
Anyway.
young and they're teenagers and stuff. I mean, I'm 35 this year, so I feel old going to my own business sometimes. So I stay in the office.
Well, keeping your business will probably keep you looking young, because you don't look 35 at all.
Oh,
good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So everyone, till next time. Actually, before I go, I want to mention that Thursday is going to be the 4th edition or 4th episode of the Wing Chun and a Cup of Tea. and I will have a new guest. His name is John DiVigilio, or Master John DiVigilio he used to be the president of the Wing Chun Association in Hawaii. He, by many, is considered the master of the knives, of the Wing Chun swords, the Bap Cham Do. And so he is going to be, we will be meeting Thursday night. It'll be like 7:30 Hawaii time, so it'll be like 10:30 here. And we may be going through a little change, meaning I may have 4 separate episodes within this one. So the 4th one will have maybe, it all depends, because he has a lot of information to share. I want that to be shared with you, and it might require more than just 15 minutes. We're thinking, or he's offered an hour, but we will still break it up in 15-minute segments, so that way it won't get too long and drawn out. And if you wish to watch the next one, you can. So, but till Thursday, and please show up, send me your questions if you have any. I want to thank Ralph again, and the restaurant owner for Pochis. And till next time, signing out. Bye.
Thank you, Sifu. Bye-bye.